One of the biggest realities of human nature is this. The more you try to happy others against your emotions, the less people truly respect you. Most people discover that truth far too late. Think about it for a moment. Why do some people spend their entire lives chasing approval, yet never feel valued? Why do others seem to command respect without constantly seeking it? And why do the darkest lessons in life often teach us more than years of comfort ever could? For centuries, philosophers tried to answer these questions. Some believed human beings wear social masks to hide their true intentions. Others argued that suffering strips away illusions and reveals reality as it really is. And some claimed that true peace begins only when you stop depending on the approval of others. What if those philosophers were right? What if the world you've been seeing is only the surface? Because beneath everyday conversations, friendships, relationships, and social interactions, there are patterns most people never notice. Invisible forces that influence behavior, shape decisions, and quietly determine who gets respected, who gets manipulated, and who remains free. Today, we're going to uncover 3 dark truths about human nature that most people only learn after painful experience. These lessons are not about becoming cold-hearted. They're about becoming aware. Because once you understand these truths, you'll never see people, or yourself, the same way again. The first truth is this: the people who need approval, the most often receive the least respect. Imagine an explorer crossing a vast desert carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Every step becomes harder. Every mile becomes more exhausting. Now imagine those stones represent the need for approval. Many people carry that weight every day without realizing it. From childhood, society teaches us to seek acceptance. Be nice. Don't upset anyone. Make people proud. Fit in. And while there's nothing wrong with being kind, problems begin when your happiness becomes dependent on how other people feel about you. Many people spend years saying yes when they want to say no. They stay silent when they should speak. They hide their opinions to avoid conflict. They become whatever others expect them to be. Slowly, they lose themselves. The strange thing is that human psychology often works against this behavior. People are naturally drawn toward those who appear emotionally grounded, those who don't desperately seek validation, those who remain calm whether they are praised or criticized. Why? Because emotional independence signals strength. When someone constantly needs approval, they become easy to influence. A little rejection can control their emotions. A little criticism can ruin their day. A little distance can send them chasing after acceptance. Without realizing it, they hand over control of their peace. And once people recognize that your happiness depends on their approval, they gain power over you. Not always intentionally, but it happens. Think about social settings. The person desperately trying to impress everyone often gets overlooked. Meanwhile, the person who is comfortable being themselves tends to attract attention naturally, not because they're louder, but because they're secure. There is a powerful difference between being kind and being dependent. Kindness comes from strength. Dependence comes from fear. And the moment you stop chasing approval, something remarkable happens. You speak more honestly. You stop over-explaining. You stop worrying about being misunderstood. You stop changing yourself to fit every room you enter. And strangely enough, people often begin respecting you more. Not because you've become arrogant, but because you've become authentic. Real confidence isn't believing everyone likes you. It's being okay when they don't. The second dark truth is this: not everyone who listens to you is on your side. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that openness automatically creates trust. So they share everything: their fears, their insecurities, their weaknesses, their dreams, their emotional scars. And at first, it feels harmless. Sometimes people even encourage it. Trust me, you can tell me anything. I'll always be here for you. But life teaches a difficult lesson. Some people listen because they care. Others listen because information is useful. History has always belonged to those who understood the value of information. And human relationships are no different. Pay attention to what happens during conflicts. Old insecurities suddenly become weapons. Private conversations reappear. Past vulnerabilities get used against you. The information you freely gave away becomes ammunition. This doesn't mean you should never trust anyone. Human connection requires vulnerability. But vulnerability without wisdom can become self-destruction. The strongest people are not necessarily secretive. They're selective. They understand that trust is earned through consistency. Not words, not promises, not appearances. Consistency. They observe before they reveal. They listen before they speak. And they understand something most people overlook. Silence has power. The loudest person in a room often reveals everything. The quiet observer often learns everything. Modern life makes this lesson harder. People share every thought online, every emotion, every frustration, every success, every setback. It's as if privacy has become old-fashioned, yet some of the most valuable things in life grow stronger when they're protected. Your goals, your peace, your plans, your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to them. And the less people know about how to emotionally control you, the harder it becomes for them to influence your decisions. Wisdom isn't about hiding from the world. It's about understanding who deserves a seat at your table. The third and perhaps most important truth is this: freedom begins the moment you stop fearing solitude. Many people stay in the wrong places for one reason. They're afraid of being alone. They remain in toxic friendships. They stay in unhealthy relationships. They tolerate disrespect. They accept treatment they know they don't deserve. Not because they're happy, not because things are working, but because loneliness feels frightening. Society quietly reinforces this fear. Someone spends time alone and immediately people ask, "Are you okay? Don't you get lonely? Why are you always by yourself?" But almost nobody asks a more important question. What happens when someone constantly surrounds themselves with the wrong people? The answer is simple. They slowly lose themselves until they no longer recognize who they've become. The truth is that being alone and being lonely are completely different things. You can sit quietly by yourself and feel completely at peace. Most people never discover that peace because they're constantly escaping themselves. The moment silence arrives, they reach for a phone, a message, a video, a distraction, anything to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But something extraordinary happens when a person becomes comfortable with solitude. They stop chasing people who barely think about them. They stop begging for attention. They stop accepting relationships that drain their energy. Because once you learn to enjoy your own company, you no longer need others to complete you. And that changes everything. People who fear loneliness are easy to manipulate. People who are comfortable alone are difficult to control. That's why emotional independence is so powerful. It creates freedom, and ultimately, the freedom to live according to your own values instead of someone else's expectations. When you combine these three lessons, a deeper picture begins to emerge. Stop chasing approval. Protect your inner world. Learn to be comfortable alone. Those three principles alone can change the way you experience life. Because the strange thing about life is that pain often becomes the greatest teacher. Betrayal teaches caution. Disappointment teaches discernment. Loneliness teaches self-reliance. And awareness teaches freedom. This isn't about becoming cold. It's not about distrusting everyone. It's not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about waking up. Waking up to manipulation. Waking up to emotional dependency. Waking up to the invisible patterns that influence human behavior every day. Because once you see those patterns, you can't unsee them. You become calmer, more observant, more deliberate, more protective of your peace. And little by little, you stop giving your power away so easily. If this message made you think differently about human nature, Let me know in the comments. Which of these 3 lessons hit you the hardest? And remember this, the world looks very different when you stop focusing on what people say and start paying attention to what they repeatedly do. Protect your mind, protect your peace, and never stop looking beneath the surface.